At my husband's funeral, I stood by his coffin, my heart already in pieces. Then I heard my own daughter, Clara, sneering with a vicious grin. "She won't get a damn dollar." Her words ripped through me like a blade, tearing open a wound so deep I thought I'd bleed out right there. But what happened next? It burned even hotter. Clara's vicious words still seared my soul as I stood trembling in that Georgia church, her sneer like a fresh cut over my heart. For 45 years, Henry and I built our life in a weathered farmhouse, nestled 3 miles from town, where cotton fields stretched like a golden ocean under the July sun. That creaking porch swing, those dogwood trees we planted, they held our story. Henry's deep chuckle over morning coffee, the way he'd string Christmas lights for Clara every winter. I raised her in that home, wiped her tears after schoolyard fights, and sewed her prom dress by hand. Now, my daughter stood 12 feet away, her black dress a mockery of mourning, muttering to her husband, Mark, with a voice sharp as a snake's hiss. "She's finished," Clara spat, her eyes glinting with greed. "This land, this house, it's all mine." My fingers clenched the prayer beads so hard they nearly snapped. How could Clara, the child I rocked through thunderstorms, betray me like this? I'd poured my life into her, every late-night prayer, every birthday cake baked from scratch. Now she wanted to rip away the home Henry and I carved from sweat and love. The preacher spoke of forgiveness, but my blood boiled with fury and grief. Clara's gaze locked onto mine, cold, unyielding, like a vulture circling. I wanted to scream, to claw back my family, but my body felt anchored in pain. Yet, deep in my chest, a spark of defiance flared. I wouldn't let her bury us. The church bells faded as I drove back to our farmhouse, Clara's cruel words clawing at my mind like thorns. The 3-mile stretch of Georgia highway felt endless, the cotton fields blurring into a haze of gold and grief. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, the prayer beads now dangling from the rearview mirror, swaying like a pendulum counting my pain. I pulled into the gravel driveway, the crunch under my tires too loud in the silence of dusk. Our farmhouse loomed ahead, its weathered boards and dogwood-lined porch a monument to the life Henry and I built. But now, it felt like a tomb, heavy with betrayal. Inside, the air smelled of old wood and Henry's pipe tobacco, a ghost of him lingering in every corner. I sank into the kitchen chair, the same one where I'd braided Clara's hair for school, where I'd listened to her teenage dreams. My eyes drifted to a framed photo on the counter, Henry and me, arms around Clara at her 8th birthday, her gap-toothed grin bright as the sun. How had that girl become the woman who sneered at my ruin? I pressed my palms to my face, trying to hold back the sobs, but they came anyway, raw and jagged, tearing through me like a storm ripping up roots. I forced myself to move, stumbling to Henry's study, a small room off the living area where he'd spent evenings balancing farm accounts. The oak desk was cluttered with papers, a half-empty coffee mug still sitting where he'd left it. My fingers trembled as I opened the top drawer, hoping for some trace of him, some answer. Instead, I found a manila envelope, its edges crisp and new, unlike the faded receipts around it. My heart stopped as I tore it open. Inside was a contract, typed and cold, from a Savannah real estate firm. It outlined plans to sell our 50-acre farm, to bulldoze the cotton fields and farmhouse for a strip mall. At the bottom, Clara's signature slashed across the page like a wound, dated 2 days before Henry's death. My knees buckled. I gripped the desk, the room spinning. Clara hadn't just betrayed me, she'd been plotting while Henry was still breathing, while I was spoon-feeding him soup in his final days. "How could you?" I whispered, my voice breaking into the empty air. The contract shook in my hands, each word a fresh stab. Immediate sale. Full ownership transfer. She'd forged my name beside hers, claiming I'd agreed to it all. My daughter, the child I'd carried through sleepless nights, was ready to erase our legacy before Henry's grave was even settled. I staggered to the porch, clutching the contract, the evening breeze cold against my tear-streaked face. The cotton fields stretched out, their soft glow mocking my despair. I sank onto the swing, the creak of its chains like a dirge. Memories flooded me, Henry teaching Clara to ride a bike down this very driveway, her laughter echoing across the fields. I'd stayed up late sewing her Halloween costumes, a witch one year, a princess the next. I'd driven her 20 miles to ballet lessons, never missing a recital. Every sacrifice, every stitch, every prayer, had it all been for nothing? What did I do wrong? I cried out, my voice lost in the wind. The pain was a living thing, clawing at my chest, deeper than any wound Clara's words had inflicted at the funeral. I don't know how long I sat there, the contract crumpled in my lap, my tears soaking the paper. The stars began to prick the sky, indifferent to my unraveling. Clara thought she'd won, that I was too broken to fight. She didn't know I'd overheard her at the funeral, didn't know I'd seen the greed in her eyes. But this contract, this betrayal, was a knife twisted too far. I thought of Henry's hands, calloused from planting those fields, his voice promising we'd grow old here together. I couldn't let Clara destroy that. Somewhere beneath the agony, a flicker of rage stirred, sharp and unyielding. I stood, my legs unsteady but my heart hardening. I wouldn't let her win. Not like this. The crumpled contract lay on the porch swing, its ink smudged by my tears, a testament to Clara's betrayal. The Georgia night wrapped around me, the cotton fields whispering secrets under a moonless sky. My chest still ached from the discovery in Henry's study, the forged signature that mocked our life's work. But as the stars faded into dawn, something shifted inside me, a spark of fury, small but fierce, refusing to let Clara's greed snuff out our legacy. I stood, the swing creaking under me, and vowed to fight. Not just for the farmhouse, not just for the 50 acres of cotton, but for Henry's memory, for the woman I still was. I shuffled back inside, the kitchen clock ticking like a heartbeat. The pain hadn't left, but it was no longer a chain, it was fuel. I needed answers, proof, something to stop Clara before she sold our home to strangers. I moved to Henry's study again, my hands steadier now, searching through his cluttered desk. Beneath a stack of seed catalogs, I found a small leather journal, its pages worn but familiar. Henry's handwriting stared back at me, each letter a piece of him I thought I'd lost. Maggie, he wrote. If you're reading this, Clara's gone too far. She's been asking about the deed, pressing me to sign it over. Don't let her tear down what we built. Protect our home. My breath caught, sharp as a knife. Henry had known. Even in his final days, he'd seen Clara's heart turn to stone. I clutched the journal to my chest, tears burning my eyes. But they weren't just grief now, they were rage, resolve. A mother's love twisted into steel. I remembered Clara's voice at the funeral, her smirk as she whispered to Mark. She thought I was weak, a relic to be swept aside. But she didn't know me, not anymore. I paced the study, the oak floor creaking under my steps, when the phone rang, shattering the silence. It was Dorothy Miller, my neighbor of 30 years, her voice sharp through the receiver. Maggie, I heard Clara at the diner, bragging to some city slicker about selling your land. Said you're too old to fight her. You need to do something, honey. Do what, Dorothy? I snapped, my voice raw. She's my daughter. How do I fight my own child? Dorothy didn't flinch. You fight because she's not that little girl anymore. She's a vulture, Maggie, circling your home. Start listening, really listening. Get proof. Her words hit like a slap, waking something fierce in me. Dorothy was right, Clara wasn't the child I'd raised. She was a stranger, plotting to erase me. That afternoon, Clara breezed into the farmhouse, her heels clicking like gunfire on the hardwood. She didn't knock, just strode into the kitchen, tossing her purse on the counter. Mother, we need to talk, she said, her tone syrupy, fake as the smile plastered on her face. This place is too big for you now. I've got people ready to buy the land. Make it worth something. You'll be comfortable in a nice facility." Her words dripped with condescension, each one a nail in my heart. I gripped the counter, my knuckles white. "This is my home, Clara," I said, my voice low, trembling with barely contained fury. "Henry and I built it. You don't get to decide." Clara laughed, a cold, sharp sound that echoed off the walls. "Oh, Mother, don't be dramatic. You can't handle 50 acres alone. I'm doing you a favor." She leaned closer, her eyes narrowing. "Sign the papers, or I'll make sure you don't have a choice." The threat hung in the air, heavy as the Georgia heat. I stared at her, the girl I'd once tucked into bed, now a stranger wielding her greed like a weapon. My heart pounded, but I didn't break. I wouldn't. After she left, her car kicking up gravel as it sped away. I sat at the kitchen table, Henry's journal open before me. Dorothy's words echoed in my mind, "Get proof." I thought of Clara's casual cruelty, her assumption that I was too frail to resist. She was wrong. I rummaged through the hall closet, finding an old cassette recorder Henry used for farm notes. My hands shook as I tested it. The faint hum a promise of justice. I wasn't sure how yet, but I'd catch her words, her plans, every slip of her venomous tongue. The pain of her betrayal still burned, but it was forging me into something new, a woman who wouldn't bend, who'd fight for what was hers. I slipped the recorder into my apron pocket, its weight, a small anchor. Clara thought she'd won, but I was just beginning. The old cassette recorder sat heavy in my apron pocket, its cold metal a lifeline as I moved through the farmhouse, each step deliberate, like a soldier stepping into battle. Clara's threat from yesterday, her icy demand to sign away our 50-acre Georgia home still echoed in my ears, her laughter slicing through me sharper than any blade. But Henry's journal, with its desperate plea to protect our legacy, had lit a fire in me. I wasn't the broken widow Clara thought I was. I was Maggie Thompson, and I'd fight for the life we'd built, for the cotton fields that stretched golden under the sun, for the dogwood trees Henry planted with his own hands. I started in the kitchen, where Clara's purse still lay carelessly on the counter from her visit. My heart pounded as I slipped the recorder under a stack of dish towels, its tiny red light blinking like a conspirator's wink. I pressed record, my fingers trembling but sure. If Clara was plotting, I'd catch her words, her venom, every damning syllable. I busied myself with the coffee pot, the gurgle of brewing grounds masking my nerves. When Clara's car roared up the gravel driveway, the sound grating like nails on a chalkboard, she stormed in, her heels snapping against the hardwood, Mark trailing behind like a shadow. "Mother, we're not done," she said, her voice sharp as barbed wire. "You need to see reason. This farm's too much for you." "Oh." I kept my eyes on the coffee, pouring a cup with a steady hand, though my insides churned. "It's my home, Clara," I said, my tone low, laced with the anger I'd buried for too long. "Henry wanted it to stay ours." She scoffed, tossing her hair. "Henry's gone, Mother, and you're not far behind if you keep clinging to this dump. I've got buyers lined up. They'll pay millions for these 50 acres. Her words hit like a punch, but I didn't flinch. I slid the coffee cup toward her, the recorder catching every word. "You don't get to decide that," I said, my voice a quiet blade. Clara's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into that same vicious smirk from the funeral. "You're delusional, old woman. I've already talked to a lawyer. You'll be in a nursing home by next month." Mark shifted uncomfortably, his gaze fixed on the floor, but Clara didn't notice. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. "Sign the papers or I'll have you declared incompetent. It's that simple." My blood boiled, but I kept my face blank, my hand brushing the recorder's hiding spot. Every word she spoke was a rope tightening around her own neck. After they left, I retrieved the recorder, my hands shaking as I played it back. Clara's voice filled the kitchen, cold and clear. "She'll be in a nursing home. It's that simple." Proof. My first weapon. But I needed more. I drove the 6 miles to town, the cotton fields blurring past, to meet Pastor James at the small Baptist church where Henry and I had married. His office smelled of old hymnals and cedar, a comfort against the storm in my chest. "Maggie," he said, his eyes kind but piercing. "Dorothy told me what's happening. You don't deserve this." I handed him the recorder, my voice breaking. "She's trying to take everything, James. I need help." He listened to the tape, his jaw tightening with each of Clara's words. "This is enough to start," he said, handing me a business card. "Tom Reynolds, a lawyer in Savannah. He's helped folks like you before. He's discreet, and he's tough." I nodded, clutching the card like a lifeline. Back home, I searched Henry's study again, my fingers combing through every drawer, every shelf. Under a pile of old ledgers, I found a small metal box, locked tight, its surface scratched from years of use. My heart raced. Henry had always kept his most private things locked away. I pried it open with a letter opener, revealing a USB drive nestled in velvet, labeled in Henry's scrawl. "For Maggie." I stared at it, my breath shallow, the weight of Henry's love and foresight pressing against my ribs. This was no accident. He'd known Clara's heart, even before I did. I slipped the USB into my pocket, next to the recorder, a new resolve hardening in my bones. Clara thought she could bury me, but I was gathering an arsenal. I'd call Tom Reynolds tomorrow. I'd uncover whatever Henry left me. And I'd make sure Clara's greed choked on itself. The USB drive and cassette recorder weighed heavy in my apron pocket, like stones anchoring me against the storm Clara was brewing. Her threat to lock me in a nursing home still burned in my ears, her cold laughter from our last encounter a whip across my heart. I'd spent the morning clutching Henry's journal, his words urging me to protect our 50-acre Georgia farm, the cotton fields that shimmered like gold under the dawn. I wasn't ready to face Clara again, but the fire in my chest, fueled by her betrayal, by Henry's plea, pushed me forward. I'd gathered proof, but I needed to confront her, to see if any shred of the daughter I raised remained. The farmhouse kitchen, with its faded linoleum and the scent of fresh coffee, became my battlefield as Clara's car screeched into the driveway, gravel flying like shrapnel. She burst through the screen door, Mark trailing behind, his eyes fixed on his shoes. A woman in a crisp gray blazer followed, her clipboard clutched like a shield, her smile as fake as Clara's concern. "Mother," Clara said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "This is Miss Carter, a social worker. She's here to help us plan your future." My stomach twisted. I knew this game, Clara's plan to declare me incompetent, to steal our home. Miss Carter stepped forward, her tone clipped. "Mrs. Thompson, we're concerned about your ability to manage this property alone. It's a lot for someone your age, 68, correct? We've prepared some documents for a care facility." I gripped the edge of the kitchen table, my knuckles white, the recorder hidden beneath a dish rag, its red light blinking silently. "This is my home," I said, my voice low but shaking with fury. "Henry and I built it. You don't get to take it." Clara's smile vanished, her eyes narrowing to slits. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Mother," she snapped, dropping the pretense. "You're confused, forgetful. Everyone sees it. Sign the papers or we'll prove you can't take care of yourself." Miss Carter nodded, scribbling on her clipboard. "It's for your safety, Mrs. Thompson. A facility in Savannah, just 10 miles away, would be perfect." My heart pounded, a drumbeat of rage and fear. I thought of Henry's hands planting dogwood trees, of the nights we'd sat on the porch swing counting stars. This wasn't just a house, it was us, our life, our love. "I'm not confused," I said, my voice rising, cracking like thunder. "I know exactly what you're doing, Clara. You forged my name on that contract. You think I'm too weak to stop you?" For a moment, Clara froze, her face paling, but then she laughed, a cruel, jagged sound that echoed off the walls. "You're paranoid, old woman," she spat. "No one's going to believe you. You're falling apart and I'm just cleaning up the mess." Mark shifted, his voice barely a whisper. Clara, maybe we should. She cut him off, her hand slicing the air. Shut up, Mark. She's done. Miss Carter cleared her throat, sliding a stack of papers toward me, a pen balanced on top. Mrs. Thompson, let's be reasonable. Sign here, and we'll handle everything. My hands trembled, not from weakness but from the storm raging inside me. I wanted to shove the papers back, to scream that Clara was the one breaking me, but doubt crept in. What if they were right? What if I was too old, too frail? The room felt smaller, the air thick, pressing down on me. I pushed the papers away, my voice barely above a whisper. I won't sign. Clara's face twisted, her eyes blazing. You'll regret this, she hissed, leaning so close I could smell her perfume, sharp and expensive. I'll drag you to court. I'll make sure you're locked away, and this farm will be mine by next week. Miss Carter stood, her clipboard snapping shut. We'll be back, Mrs. Thompson. Think carefully. They left, the screen door slamming like a gunshot, leaving me alone in the silence. I sank into a chair, my breath ragged, the weight of failure crushing me. I'd stood my ground, but Clara's threat felt like a noose tightening. My fingers brushed the recorder, still hidden, its tape holding her damning words. It wasn't enough, not yet. I thought of Pastor James, his promise of Tom Reynolds, the lawyer who could help. I needed more than a tape, more than Henry's journal. That USB drive, tucked away in my pocket, felt like a lifeline, a secret Henry left me. I didn't know what it held, but I knew Clara underestimated me. She thought she'd broken me, but I was still standing, my resolve sharpening like a blade in the dark. The weight of Clara's threat to lock me away in a nursing home, to steal our 50-acre Georgia farm pressed against my chest like a stone. But the USB drive in my pocket burned hotter, a beacon of hope Henry had left me. The farmhouse kitchen, with its faded linoleum and lingering scent of coffee, felt like a fortress now, guarding the secrets I'd gathered. The recorder capturing Clara's venom, Henry's journal pleading for our legacy, and now this mysterious drive, labeled, "For Maggie," in his careful hand. After yesterday's failed confrontation, when Clara and her fake social worker, Ms. Carter, tried to bully me into signing away my home, I knew I couldn't face her again without knowing what Henry had hidden. My hands trembled, not from fear but from a fire that refused to die. As I drove the 6 miles to Savannah to meet Tom Reynolds, the lawyer Pastor James swore could save me. Tom's office was a small, oak-paneled room above a hardware store, the air thick with the smell of old books and lemon polish. He stood as I entered, his gray suit crisp but his eyes warm, like he'd seen battles like mine before. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, gesturing to a chair. "Pastor James says you're in a fight for your life's work. Let's see what you've got." I set the recorder on his desk, its tape holding Clara's chilling words. "I'll have you declared incompetent." Then I handed him Henry's journal, its pages worn from my sleepless nights reading his warnings about Clara's greed. Finally, I pulled out the USB, its metal glinting under the desk lamp. "This was Henry's," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I don't know what's on it, but he left it for me." Tom's brow furrowed as he plugged the USB into his laptop. My heart pounded, each beat a drumroll in the quiet room. The screen flickered, and there was Henry, my Henry, his face gaunt from the cancer that took him, but his eyes fierce, unyielding, the same eyes that promised me forever under the dogwood trees 45 years ago. His voice filled the room, deep and steady, like a river cutting through stone. "Maggie, if you're watching this, I'm gone," he said, his words wrapping around me like a warm blanket. "Clara's been circling, asking about the deed, the bank accounts, the cotton fields. She thinks she can take it all, but she's wrong. You're the heart of this family, Maggie. The farm, the house, every penny, it's yours. Don't let her twist our love into something ugly. Fight for it. Fight for us." Tears streamed down my face, hot and unstoppable, as if my heart had cracked open after months of holding it together. I pressed my hands to my mouth, stifling a sob. But Tom reached across the desk, his voice gentle but firm. "This is gold, Maggie. This video is a legal will, notarized and time-stamped. Clara doesn't stand a chance." I nodded, my vision blurred, Henry's voice still echoing in my bones. I saw him in my mind, sitting in his study, recording this in secret while Clara plotted behind our backs. He'd known her heart, seen her greed before I could admit it. "He always protected me," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Even now." Tom leaned back, his eyes sharp. "We've got more than the video. Your recorder, the journal, they paint a clear picture. But we need to move fast. Clara's pushing hard, and she's not done." He paused, studying me. "Are you ready for this fight, Mrs. Thompson?" I wiped my tears, my hands steady now, the pain forging into something harder, something unbreakable. "I've never been more ready," I said, my voice low but fierce. "She thinks I'm weak, but she's about to learn who I am." As I drove back to the farmhouse, the cotton fields glowing under the midday sun, I felt Henry beside me, his strength in every word he'd left on that USB. The 6-mile road felt shorter now, my resolve a steel rod in my spine. Clara thought she could bury me, thought her threats and forged papers would break me. But Henry's video was my sword, my shield, my proof that our love was stronger than her greed. I parked in the driveway, the gravel crunching under my tires, and stepped onto the porch. The swing creaked softly, as if whispering Henry's promise. I wasn't just fighting for the farm anymore, I was fighting for myself, for the woman who'd loved and lost but refused to be erased. Clara's reckoning was coming, and I'd be ready when it did. The morning of the will reading dawned heavy, the Georgia air thick with the scent of rain and cotton fields. My hands shook as I buttoned my navy dress, the one Henry said, made my eyes glow like twilight. The USB drive, recorder, and Henry's journal sat in a canvas bag at my side, each item a piece of armor forged from his love and my pain. Clara's threats, her venomous promise to lock me in a nursing home, to sell our 50-acre farm still gnawed at my heart. But Henry's video, revealed yesterday in Tom Reynolds' office, was a flame that steadied me. I drove the 6 miles to Savannah, the gravel road blurring under my tires, my resolve hard as the oak trees lining our driveway. Today, Clara would face the truth, and I would reclaim our legacy. The lawyer's office was a sterile room, its walls lined with mahogany shelves, the air sharp with the scent of ink and polished wood. Tom Reynolds sat beside me, his gray suit a quiet promise of strength. Clara strutted in, her cream dress too bright, her pearls gleaming like a trophy she hadn't earned. Mark followed, his shoulders hunched, avoiding my gaze. Miss Carter, the fake social worker, lingered behind, her clipboard gone but her smugness intact. Clara clutched a thick folder, her forged papers waving like a flag of victory. "Let's make this quick," she said, her voice sharp as a switchblade. "I've got everything ready to transfer the property. Mother doesn't need the burden." Tom didn't flinch. He folded his hands, his voice calm but cutting. "There's a document we need to review first, Miss Thompson." Clara's eyes narrowed, her fingers tightening on her folder. "What document?" she snapped. Tom pressed a button, and a screen on the wall flickered to life. Henry's face appeared, his cheeks sunken but his eyes blazing with the fire I'd loved for 45 years. His voice boomed, steady as a church bell. "If you're watching this, Clara, you've tried to take what isn't yours. This farm, this house, every cent it belongs to Maggie. You've chosen greed over family, and you'll get nothing." The room froze. Clara's face drained of color, her mouth falling open like a broken hinge. I sat still, my hands clasped, the prayer beads warm in my pocket. My heart pounded, not with triumph, but with a raw, aching grief for the daughter I'd lost. Clara lunged forward, her voice a high-pitched shriek. "No, this is a lie. He was sick, delusional. You tricked him, you old hag." Her words cut like glass, but I didn't move. Tom raised a hand, his tone unyielding. This video is notarized, legally binding. Your forged documents are void, Miss Thompson. The will stands. And Clara's hands shook, her folder slipping to the floor, papers scattering like fallen leaves. Mark reached for her, but she shoved him away, her breath ragged. I did everything for this, she screamed, her voice cracking. I waited years, planned it all. You can't take it from me. Her eyes locked on mine, wild, desperate, like a cornered animal. I saw the girl who'd once run through our cotton fields, her laughter bright as the sun. But that girl was gone, swallowed by greed. Clara, I said, my voice soft but steady. You broke us, not me. Her knees buckled, and she sank into a chair, her face crumpling like the papers at her feet. Tom stood, his voice final. This concludes the reading. Mrs. Thompson, you're free to go. I rose slowly, my joints aching but my spine straight, the canvas bag heavy on my shoulder. Clara's sobs followed me as I walked to the door, each step a drumbeat of closure. Mother, wait, she whispered, her voice small, childlike. I paused, my hand on the knob, but I didn't turn. I saw her in my mind, 5 years old, clutching my hand at a county fair. But that memory couldn't erase her betrayal. A tear slid down my cheek, but I wiped it away before it fell. Outside, the savannah air was sharp. The sky streaked with gold as the sun broke through the clouds. I stood at the edge of the parking lot, the cotton fields calling me home. It wasn't victory, I felt it was release, a heavy weight lifting from my chest. I'd kept my promise to Henry, protected our farm, our love. But the cost was my daughter, a loss deeper than any grave. I pressed my hand to my heart, feeling its steady beat. Clara had tried to bury me, but I'd risen, stronger than she'd ever know. Now, I had to face what came next, not just for me, but for the life I'd fought to save. The Savannah sun dipped low, painting the cotton fields gold as I drove the 6 miles back to our Georgia farmhouse, the weight of the will reading still heavy on my shoulders. Clara's broken sobs, her scattered papers, and her final, desperate plea, "Mother, wait," echoed in my mind, but they couldn't undo the chasm she'd carved between us. I'd walked out of that lawyer's office with Henry's legacy intact, our 50-acre farm, the dogwood trees, the porch swing where we'd dreamed of growing old. Yet, as I pulled into the gravel driveway, the familiar crunch under my tires felt different, not victorious, but quiet, like the stillness after a storm. I stepped onto the porch, the air thick with the scent of rain and earth, and sank into the swing. My hands traced the worn wood, each knot a memory of Henry's laughter, our shared life, the daughter we'd lost long before today. I thought of Clara, the girl who once chased fireflies in these fields, her pigtails bouncing as she squealed with joy. I'd taught her to plant seeds, to pray, to love. But somewhere along the way, greed had rooted in her heart, twisting her into a stranger who saw me as an obstacle, not a mother. The pain of her betrayal still burned, a wound deeper than any I'd known. But it had forged me into something stronger. I wasn't just Maggie Thompson, the widow clinging to memories. I was a woman who'd fought for her home, her dignity, and won. That fight taught me something vital. No matter your age, no matter the heartbreak, you have the strength to stand for what matters. For me, it was this farm, Henry's love, the life we built. For you, it might be something else. A dream, a family, a truth you refuse to let go. I looked out at the cotton fields, their golden waves swaying under the twilight, and felt Henry's presence, steady as ever. Life doesn't spare us pain, but it gives us choices. I chose to fight, not with screams or fists, but with quiet resolve, with proof, with love that refused to break. You can choose that too. Whatever you're facing, betrayal, loss, or doubt, don't let it bury you. Dig deep, find your fire, and hold fast to what makes you whole. I learned that at 68, when I thought my strength was gone, and it's a lesson I'll carry forever. I stepped inside, the farmhouse wrapping me in its familiar warmth, the scent of old wood and coffee, a quiet comfort. I'm sharing this story because someone out there needs to hear it, needs to know they're not alone in their fight. If my words touched you, if they stirred something in your heart, please leave a comment below. Share your story. What have you fought for? What keeps you going? Click that like button if you believe in standing strong. And join us on the Unwanted Revenge channel for more stories of resilience. We're here to remind you that your strength is never lost, only waiting to be found. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd braided Clara's hair decades ago, and felt a new chapter beginning not just for me, but for the home I'd saved, the life I'd reclaimed.